Okay, so are there any other folks that we need to know anything about? Anybody having surgery? Anything happening to make the group aware of? Okay, so as far as announcements go, Richard or Ronnie, either one of you, do you want to fill everybody in on how storytelling went? Don't be bashful.
Amen. we set up on Thursday, and we worked Friday, Wednesday. Oh my God. That's why I'm getting old. I can't even remember. We set up Wednesday. We opened up at 8 o'clock on Thursday morning and closed 7 something that night. We reopened on Friday morning at 8, went till 7. Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday again, Sunday. We had 3 tents together. It was through Tennessee Craft, and Ron and I were the 2 Woodturners that were there. We had a jewelry maker, and we had literally a 2D artist who made pictures, quite good pictures, and so we sold. And it's a good venue. There are people that come from out of town. The storytelling has now allowed it to go on video. So a lot of the out-of-towners come up. Back when I started in 2011, there would be people from Europe. And so there were people from California there. There were people from Washington there. It's a good venue. Not like people that come from out of town. Storytelling. Oh, did you? So there was one from Germany. So a lot of the out-of-towners. I think we did well. Ron and I did it. We're kind of even Steven the whole time, financially. So it was a good show. And now with Tennessee Craft, I'll be going to Nashville this week. I'm working in Nashville. Valley Cruises the week after. Jackson the week after that. Telephone Village the week after that. Other than that,
Wow. Well, the first night of storytelling in Johnson City at Lumber and Craft, which we've partnered with, they had a event down the street because construction was finally over on Walnut. So I reached out to a couple and everybody was doing their own thing. It was kind of, for me, short notice, but Bob and I went and we took our youngest grandson, and he actually was able to turn a top and 2 mushrooms. So at 14, he did well, and we had some interest in the group. So over on that table, make certain that you get the invitation cards. It's like business card size, but it's an invitation to the meeting to let everybody know a contact, an address, whatever, and just to let them know that we come here and we talk about our triumphs and our failures and then compare notes. And it's just a good group of people, and we meet once a month. So also in August,
Cards. It's like
I was contacted by Barter Theater. They have it's some kind of a display thing that they stick these flags down in, and he said every year it's like 18 grand that they spend to replace these things because the wind just wears them out. So they wanted some type of something, in your mind, picture a traffic cone. So we turned a traffic cone, and it didn't matter the wood because their props department was going to take what we made and use it as a form for whatever material they used to make these things, so they wouldn't have to keep buying them. So I am waiting to hear back from Will Ennis to see how things went, and my hope from them is to have some type of a letter from Barter Theater to have Tri-City Woodturners named as a contributing something to help with Barter Theater. So fingers crossed on that one, and I'm still in the works. Okay, club business. In December, we will have our Christmas party, so it really won't be so much of a meeting. So next month, we are doing donations. So for 2 not-for-profits, we would like to be able to add ornaments to their Christmas trees. So like, say, Isaiah House with the kids, or Jeremiah School, or wherever. But with this group, we will be able to do quite a few, this I know. And we've gotten several this evening, so just remember by November's meeting on the 4th of November, we will need these brought in so I can get them distributed to where they need to go. And there'll be pictures and all that sort of stuff. So that's our, since we're not for profit, that's our community give for the last quarter of this year. Now, any other announcements? What have I missed? Oh, yeah. See, that's my mantra. What did I miss? We have 3 chunks of wood over there, which is spalted ambrosia maple. They are being auctioned off, and I'm not the auctioneer. Bob is. So, listen to my husband over there, and we need to, all the money, the proceeds go to the club, so do well. I start at 5. Come on, it's raising money for the club. Ronnie? Oh, Ronnie. Oh, Dave's 10. Okay. Woo-hoo-hoo! All right, woohoo! Good deal. All right, 1 down. Come on, come on, come on. Yeah, okay. Watch your shit. No, don't look at me. Don't look at me. Come on, Jerry. Come on, Jerry. All right. No, it's Dan. Dan. No, he didn't bid. It was Dan. Now I'm starting out at 10 because you're paying for it. So 10. I did 10. 20 over here. We got 20. 22.5. All right. No, 25. Yeah. All right, Paul. Woo-hoo. All right, thank you everybody for that. And Bill, thank you for the donation. Appreciate it greatly. Oh, gosh. Now just remember, if y'all have got wood, bring it and we can distribute it through the group because we all just love wood. All right, Sue's got her list.
This is the sign-up sheet. And so put down what
Speaking of, who has signed up for November of this year? Who's doing next month's demonstration? Oh, good. Okay, great. We got it. Okay, so now we are up to the instant gallery because I didn't forget this time. Yay. And Richard's first, looks like. Talk louder. I'll put this in your face.
This is Norfolk Island Pond, and it is entering turn. So this is how it's at in the street. I sanding. Norfolk Island pine is a very unique wood. Looks like a Christmas tree, and it is like a Christmas tree. It grows in southern Florida, can get 100 feet tall, no problem. Yesterday you had a Christmas tree. The hurricane came last night. Today you have a telephone pole. It goes to the dump, and then enterprising people go to the dump and cut up blanks and sell them to dummies like me. But anyway, after it's turned and it's turned end grain, you can get, these are the limbs that come out. And if you get it the right spot, which I did not do, because I was going for something else, and you put it in consistency of mineral spirits and linseed oil. And I took it for 2 weeks in oil, linseed oil, and mineral spirits, and it comes out just like this. All that color, all those things. And that's because it's spalting. But it's not spalting like you can see on our deciduous woods. You can see it. You can't see this until you bring it out with the oil, linseed oil, and mineral spirits. And it's a lovely tree to turn. The only thing that looks like a pine that I'm willing to turn, because it's not gummy like the pines that we work on.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Very nice. All right, Kevin. Too bad. Get up here. And soft-spoken people must use the mic. We must.
I didn't know I was soft-spoken. Oh, okay. Well, this is what I started at Lumber and Craft. And then I took it home and put it on our chuck and finished it, just to make sure our chuck was any good. So it's a 3-cornered bowl. I mean, it's what it is. You turn 2 corners away out here and make trash out of them, take the other 6 corners and keep them. Then you got little feet. This one's got a little lid on it. I have a tendency to like to turn air. Seems to be more fun. It's really exciting when you grab one of these and throw it out of there.
Yeah, but it's dangerous when you catch a point. Yeah, that's what he was before I interrupted him. All right, so Stan. So you don't have to get up.
Not much to say. Lisa wanted some ornaments, and this is the size I normally make, and the birds that come from the Mennonite store. I decided to make some smaller ones, which this is Kentucky coffee tree. Never heard of it. And George gave me a piece of it, just the right size that I couldn't decide what to do with it. So I cut it down and did this. I like contrasting tops, so that's also a Kentucky coffee tree top with, what's that black ink? India ink, and just to give it the contrast. I wanted to make some smaller ones. These are cherry and walnut. They're kind of neat and small. The problem is the birds don't work. These birds are too big for this little old, so I guess I need to find some small birds. I've looked and was unsuccessful. Thank you. Well, if you haven't noticed, the same article, there was an article in one of the magazines a month or so ago, and he was doing birdhouses, and we've seen birdhouses, all kinds. And then at the end of the article, he said, you know, if you really want a challenge, make a 1/2-inch birdhouse and make a ear bob out of it. And Sue said, sure. So I did. So, and that's really not such a big deal. They're kind of, well, my 5/8-inch bold gouge was not worth much when I was working on those. But you, the base is a pin blank, 3/4 inch, but I cut it in close to 1/2 inch. I did drill it out. It's hollow on the inside, and the top is holly.
That's what I was wondering on the top. It's good that they're hollow because that could, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, following on for Lisa's request, I turned some different shapes of ornaments with leftover scrap. Snowman. Did inside out. And it's cherry, maple, southern yellow pine, walnut.
If you hoard up your scrap, there's always a use for it. So, who we got next?
Well, again, some ornaments for it, little bird house, some snowmen, and I had one that I haven't finished. And what I do for church is I make a bunch of these for the kids, and in their Sunday school class, they decorate them. So make a bunch, and then they do that. Here's a little bulb, I guess.
The bulb idea. Very nice. All right. And Dave's up.
I must be soft-spoken. I didn't do any ornaments. Completely different thing. Three things. Lisa and Bobby were over near my house. There was a huge 100-year-old plus silver maple tree that blew over it's the Yellow House on Claude Simmons Road. It's an old historic place. You all probably know about it. But these are three trees that were in the front, lined it along the highway there. I'd been watching this tree we moved in over there almost 20 years ago, and I've watched it since day one. It was peppered with burls along the base. When it blew over, I jumped and made a contact with the person that was going to be cutting it up, and he's like, take whatever you want. I never saw him. So I got all the burls off of it. There were about a dozen or 14, two of which were pretty good size. So I haven't gotten into them yet. But I got into some of the wood that was in there, and I found out it's got some incredible chatoyancy. I don't know if that's called curly or not, but this is a piece out of the main trunk. And the story with this one is, the reason I brought it in, I was just experimenting wanted to see what the wood would be like in a functional bowl. And in the middle of this work, I got a request for a donation for the ETSU Wesley Foundation fundraiser, which was, I guess, last weekend. And so I decided I would donate it for that. It was a good. My wife ended up buying it back for way more than I would have priced this bowl at. It was a donation. So, fun story. This little bowl is out of the same tree, and it's much more exaggerated. You can probably see that with a light glancing off of it. Just beautiful wood, and I've got several more pieces, and I think Lisa and Bobby got some of that as well. But you gave away almost a truckload one day, didn't you? You brought it in and handed it out. Anyway, it's worth it. Totally different story. Just an example of some of the. If you're a member of another club, like I've belonged to the Carolina Mountain Woodturners and the Smoky Mountain Woodturners. They're cheap to join, and you get to go to classes and things like that. Carolina Mountain Woodturners, they did a class on goblets, and I'd always wanted to learn how to do a goblet because my very first one, I turned the stem first, had this delicate little stem, then I had to hollow it. Didn't work, and it doesn't work. Just doesn't work. But anyway, I figured that out. But they talked us through, and we made 3 sample pieces when they gave us the mahogany to play with. And I just thought it turned out really well. I was following instructions. I had somebody looking on my shoulder, but it shows the value of some of these classes you can take through other clubs, or if we decide to do a class, we can get somebody that knows what they're doing to come and demonstrate and let us all work on things. But that's right.
Figured out how to get credit for your tax.
Yes, I did.
If you give a piece that you do, you cannot take it off of your taxes. But you can take that off because you've been paid for it.
I have
You gave the money.
There you go.
No, you don't get it.
I didn't get it. It went to Wesley Foundation.
Yeah, but you got to keep the bowl.
Your taxes because you paid for it.
Yeah, charitable donation. Yeah, yeah.
I get this
Yeah, yeah.
I gave a pole that went at auction for $1,800, and I couldn't claim one dime of it off my taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, you should have seen that tree trunk when he got done with it. It's like a mad beaver got a hold of it. It's just places everywhere. Okay, we got John LaChance. There you are.
Hi. What I got? Oh, ornaments. No, what? I'm trying to think. Not inside out. What do you call it? Is that inside out? Yeah, inside out ornament. Little birdie in a house. I don't even know the wood. Probably pear and hollow. Someone should do a class on this, how to hollow a form that small and, let's say make an ornament out of it. Not easy because you don't know how thick the wall is. Thus the holes. No, that's on purpose because that's how I was told. You drill a couple of random holes. It gives you an idea of how thick the wall is by, I still got more to go. And you take some more out until you don't. And anyways, someone should do a class on that. I have a piece of maple. It was a cutoff from a plank, 8-quarter stock. It's just a maple bowl. Nothing fancy, but it came out so nice. I have to give that away because if I keep it, I'm going to start putting stuff in it and, yeah. And then that's too much because someone's on a diet. So I know, dirty word. This is a piece of ash. Has anybody ever worked with ash? You'll know that it doesn't hold a lot of magnetism or beauty. It has grain, but it doesn't, nothing jumps out at you. So I did a OG curve. I did an undercut. I did a beaded rim edge. I did feet. I did everything but kiss the thing. Oh, I put inside, what do you call it? On the inside and on the bottom. And it's still just a bowl, but it was fun. Yeah, I know you can dress that pig up right up, but there it is. That's it.
Hollow class.
I'm sorry.
So John's going to do the hollowing class one time next year, Sue. So go ahead and put him down for that. Somebody. All right, Tom.
Soft spoken?
I do.
Okay.
Unless you get mad.
This is English walnut, chip and dip bowl, and it is finished with wipe on poly. Wipe on poly, Harold. I have had more challenges working with this English walnut than you can shake a stick at. I sharpen a tool, get a smooth cut, and then all of a sudden it's a bunch of ragged tear outs. I got a negative rake scraper, and that helps a lot. And I'm keeping it sharp, but I'll tell you, I just go through a lot of 80 grit sandpaper. It's all done. I like it. 60. I'll use your chainsaw next time. I like it. Cindy likes it too, and that's what's important. Thank you.
Richard said, shine sells. Okie dokie, wonderful. I would have brought something as well, but yesterday we drained the pond and I'm exhausted and I forgot who I am. So next time, it'll be great. Okay, we have our demonstrator for this month, Bill Collison, and I would like everyone to welcome him. And Bill, the floor is yours. Let Dan hook you up.
What got me going on this was Jim Duxbury, who is an engineer and belongs to Carolina Woodturners. He and Rita came, I guess, 3, 4, 5 years ago and did a presentation. He stayed at our house, and I think you want to pull it down here. How's that? Is that better? Okay. So we're fooling around in the shop, and Jim looked at me and he said, "Bill, when you put something on the lathe, do you know what it's going to be?" I said, "Well, I have an idea what I'd like it to be, but I kind of let the wood talk to me. And sometimes you're presented with some artistic opportunities to make a smaller bowl out of a larger one. And I have a nice designer firewood pile out back of my log barn, and sometimes things end up there. Not that often, but sometimes." And I looked at him and said, "Why do you ask, Jim?" He said, "Because when I put something on the lathe, I know exactly what it's going to be." And if you had seen the things that he built, he is a master. And I haven't seen Jim lately, but I got thinking about that. And you notice that this is a square bowl here. This is a square platter. And I'm going to lay it down so you can see what's going on, but it's turned. That just wasn't cut straight. It came out of a block of wood about like that, and then Tina airbrushed it. So what I'm going to do is tell you where this took me. Fooling around a month or so ago for no other reason that I had 3 blanks like this, and I could turn them into 3 more platters. And I'm reminded of a fellow who recently deceased, who was quite a gentleman, David Ellsworth. And David was president at the birth of the American Association of Woodturners, and he was doing woodturning before there was a club. I happened to spy a salt and pepper shaker of his one day. And I said, "David, I didn't know you did that." I said, "How many of those did you make?" He said, "Enough to pay the rent." And he never gave me a number. But anyway, I started fooling around. And one of my students gave me this device, and I use a different type of one, but I said, "Okay, let's make a circle." Well, I've certainly made a number of those. And, you lobe the corners off, put some shallow screws in your faceplate, buck it up, put a tenon on the other side, come out and make yourself a nice shallow bowl or platter. And I looked at that and I said, "Well, I've made a heck of a lot of those too. So why don't I just put this here and put this here and go like this." And, I got thinking back to when I was in high school,
and I was doing plane geometry, sophomore year in high school. So what have you got here? Well, you got a mess. But now what I'm going to do is use each one of these to draw through the center. So I'm just going to work my way around. Move up to this one. Move around over to here. We already covered that. By the way, you will know if you've gone too far or you've lost the plot if you start retracing a line. So I'm going to move back over here. And I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to go back up here. Okay, now I think I got everybody. Nope, not retracing a line. Get that right there. Okay, now each one of those curves is essentially a half circle. I don't know how it looks. Is it clear enough that you can see the lines on the TV? Okay, good. Now, then I got thinking, well, I don't have enough wood out here to do this, or I'd have had to make a smaller piece. There's one thing I know. Equals are as they are to each other. I learned that in 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, Monsignor Mackin High School. So if you do that, and you go from this point to this point, there is going to be some turning in this. And I hope you're not going to think about this as watching two guys fish. But as you go around and do this, in between each of these lines, any part of this protractor is fine because it's going to be the same no matter if you use it over here now, getting around the edge. Like I say, I'm sitting there not trying to be brilliant at this. I'm sitting there saying, this is interesting. Wonder if I try this. I can tell you I've done a lot of other stuff, which will be grist for maybe something next year using this. But this is, now, what you have here, if you want to put that on the bandsaw, you can cut these out. And when you get it cut out, it looks like that. Now when you start turning, what have you got? Well, let me tell you about this. You can do it like this, if you'd like. But you could have drawn a line straight across like this. You know what you would have had? A very nice English-looking clock. And there are all kinds of clock makers that you could put a battery powered clock in here, and you would have each one of these points would be an hour. And you can also, you're looking at it saying, okay, so what are you going to do with it? Well, I can't obviously turn this on this lathe because I have a 4224 and I would have to spin this outboard. But I did. I shrunk it up. Now, in shrinking it up, I guess I could use this. And if I can get tell you what, you've seen that part. Here it is all done on the bandsaw. And I just so happen to have this. Don't you all laugh. I had 2 of these until Monday, and my student, who will remain nameless, caused me to have to improvise. I have about 6 or 8 of these hanging on the wall, and I mic'd them, and they were reasonably in place. Okay, now, when we get this tight, what I'm going to do with it, yep, that looks pretty good. Yep. Let's try it out for size. Yeah, okay. All right. This is a a double tenon piece. So what I'm going to do here, by the way, I never used one of these. I always used safety glasses until I had a salad bowl come off the lathe and hit me right here. Broke my nose, didn't throw up, didn't fall down, went in the house, had dinner. And the next day, I thought, there are guys that get brain bleeds this way. So I think what I'll do is I'll go down and see the doc. And when I took the salad bowl in, and by that time I looked like a raccoon, my doctor's PA said, "You're going downstairs and getting a CT." So I did. He called back the next day, and she said, "Bill, your brain's fine." And I said, "Darling, you've now committed malpractice because my wife will tell you that my brain is not fine." And one of the reasons I started messing around with this was, after a while, turning another square platter I felt a little bit like Elizabeth Taylor's fourth husband, on their honeymoon night, I knew what the task was that needed to be performed. I just didn't know if I could make it interesting. So I've been trying to test myself to find some new stuff to do. Okay. Let's take that off, turn it around, and I'm going to take the bottom out of it. Taking the bottom out is going to be easier when you're working on the front side of the piece. If you start trying to get in behind it with only this much room between you and the headstock, that leads to some very interesting gyrations. Okay. Just hogging wood. Now I am intending for this to be a weeping bowl. Whether that actually happens, that shaking is called delirium essential tremors. Some of you have it. I've got it. They're going to be doing carpal tunnel surgery on me in about 2 weeks. Will put me out of business, so to speak, for about 6 weeks as a rehab. Did my left one about 4 or 5 years ago. This, I took one of my 20-inch pieces and actually cut it up to make the blanks for this, so it could be done on this. Lathe, and yeah, I think we're getting there. The kiln dried lumber that is on this piece is the last of a slab that I bought down in Asheville. And the fellow that sold actually 3 slabs to me for $750, his business went down the French Broad River. And it not only, he had no flood insurance, nobody along the river district that I know of did. And but he sold me, I was driving to Chantilly, Virginia, and dealing with Wayne Dunlap for years, and I'd drive about 7 hours up there, have him cut stuff to my dimensions, put it in the back of what was an Outback at that time, and take off and drive back home. When I found out I could get good quality wood without having to make that trip, it made it worthwhile. That catch, I think, got a wobble. To show you that I actually can do this, somewhere in here, hand that one around. That's proof of concept. That's what ducks would say. Well, that's your proof of concept, isn't it? Well, okay, I guess so. So just take the tenon out of the inside of the bowl and everything else that isn't part of the bowl. Now, Walt, I know you don't know this, or you don't like these, but these are Thompson chisels. And you say you can't get an edge on them. I've got a couple that I can't either because they're U-shaped, but the V-shapes I have no trouble with. Okay. Something else I figured out along the way was if you wanted to make, can you get that one? Got it down? What I did there, I decided to draw a line through the center here and then use the small compass to turn these loops. Again, to cut them out with a bandsaw, and I can loop them up and make petals out of them. I can loop them down and make petals out of them. I can cut this off square, and if you leave it round, you've got 360 degrees, and each one of these lines will conform to the 12 points of the compass. North, south, east, and west, east, southeast, south, southeast, etc. And so if you're interested in making a compass, that's another opportunity. You'll notice that there are some additional small things in here that occur when you're drawing the larger ones. So if you want to make a platter and then you want to turn your wife loose on doing the carving in the center with the flower, you got something else that you can do. And how long did it take me to lay this out? 20 minutes. I've never laid a thing out in my life before. I slapped it on the lathe and started working with the chisel. So I've found something that I think is going to keep me in the chips, so to speak, in terms of doing something new for a while to come. Okay. Yeah, that's just fooling around. There's a lot more work to be done on this to thin it down, but to make it look similar to the one that, there we go. That's just a rough turn piece. I call this one proof of concept. Yeah. Questions? Yes, sir, Tom. I've been having a hell of a lot of trouble with lacquer. Back in the day, I'm reaching for my air blower. Back in the day, I was getting 5-gallon pails from Chris Ramsey And 5 gallons lasted me a long time. And I got to the point where I got 5 gallons of sealer it was a company out of Louisville called Jellicoe. Well, the guy went out of business and he took the formula with him. And I'll tell you, it was the best lacquer. I mean, it was just as smooth. It would flow just like silk. So I wore out a couple of folks, a couple of marketing reps, talking to them about, drying rates and amount of solids and, all kinds of stuff. And I ended up buying Mohawk Buff Coat 40 sheen. And I cut it with about 10 to 15% of thinner. And I think that's got 3 coats on it. Now, there's one other thing. I can turn a 40 sheen into a 95 sheen, which is what you've got there, and I'll tell you how you do it. Way, way back, 18 years ago, there was a German company called Mazerna. And Mazerna sold 5 different sticks that were violin polish. I used the top 2, very fine and finest. And they sold them at that time. It looked like a bar about that big, about that wide, about that long. Well, I'm down after 18 years to this on the finest and about this on the very fine. And I don't even know if I can find them again. But that has 15 minutes on the buffer, not longer. And I hit it with both wheels. I use a Beal system. I use a Beal system that fits into my headstock with a Morris 2, and I just have one wheel on it. I take the wheel off, put the finest wheel on. And that's the way that goes. Okay. Fun number 2. Okay, we're going to have an auction here. And the auction is that log that you see sitting in front of you. What I have done here, I cut this down so that I could turn it on a 20. That piece right there, Tom, grab that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you get up. You're as creaky as I am. Yeah. Go ahead and pass that around. Here, let me give it to Dan. Okay, all right. That, every once in a while, you find something. I'll tell you a quickie. I'm on the first tee at PGA down in Florida. And the guy turns around and he looks at me, he said, you're from Philly. Yes, I was born in Philadelphia. I lived there the first 2 years of my life. My father was raised in Philadelphia. My mother was Ohioan. And I'm trying to figure out how in the hell that guy found out that I was from Philadelphia, because he picked it right out. He said, it was something you said. And I said, wonderful. And he said, by the way, he said, you really want to use one of these golf balls? And I looked at him and I said, why? He said, well, you can't lose them. I said, what do you mean? He said, you hit it into the high weeds, into the rough, 2 flags come out and start going like this. And I looked at him, I said, what? He said, even better. If you hit it into the deep woods, it sends off a beep, 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 beep that gets stronger as you get closer to it. I said, wow. I said, what happens if it goes in the water? He said, oh, that's the best part. He said, a little propeller comes out of the back and 2 water wings, and it goes right across the water hazard. I said, hell, where can I get a dozen of these? He said, hell, I don't know. I found this one. This is a piece I found. It's got Benzine, the guy that comes and spends a half day a week. And look, I have said this to you all before, and there's probably out of the club 20 people that have been in my shop at one time or another, and they're more than welcome. I've got a 4224 and I've got a Jet 1642, one of the old ones. The one I keep down in Asheville behind the curtains is a Jet with a 1-horse, but it's a MIDI, I guess you'd call it, but it's got a 1-horse motor on it, so you can crank on it. I got rid of my little bench lathe Jet. You could reach out and stop it, at full tilt. It wouldn't hurt you. But you're welcome to come anytime you want. If the shop's open and there's something that you want to work on. As a matter of fact, one more joke, and I'm going to get back to finishing this. When I was a traveling salesman, I was a regional vice president. That's a title. I'm a commissioned salesman, and I'm selling interest in oil wells all across the East Coast. I have Maine to Florida. Well, there are a bunch of other guys in my company. There were 5 of us. And then our competitors who sold similar products, we'd become friends. Everybody got a piece of the pot, Well, one day, one of the guys said, we're sitting around drinking after we'd done a demonstration for a regional office, and we had about 150 brokers, and each one of us gets an hour, and you pay handsomely for that because you're paying for the hotel room, the food, the drinks, and everything, and you want them to sell your product. Well, this guy turned around and he said, I got a great idea for new business. I said, what's that? He said, I'm going to call it Fly-In Anonymous. And I said, Fly-In Anonymous? What the hell is that? He said, if you find a girl out here on the trail that you spend some time with, perhaps in the biblical sense, and you want to fly her home, if you pay me $500, I'll talk you out of it. And I'll tell you what, if I had done that, I'd have saved some money on several occasions over 15 years or so. That was before I met my wife of 42 years. Okay, starting out, this log right here is for sale. This is the log it came out of, and the piece you're passing around right now is the other part of that log. Now, you can cut that log in half and probably take 2 nice closed edge. I will tell you one thing about Bradford pear bark. It won't come off. Now, if you're going to do a cherry bowl, you better cut that wood sometime around Thanksgiving to about the 15th of March. And if you go by a log yard and you see a bunch of logs that don't have any bark on them, it looks like they've been through a debarker. They haven't been. It's springtime and the water came back up into the tree. And when they dumped the damn logs, the bark fell off. You cannot cement cherry bark onto a log. It just won't. Am I wrong, Richard? It just won't stay. It'll stay for a while, and all of a sudden, half of it goes over your shoulder. That, I can tell you, will not come off, regardless of the time of year you cut it. That's 6 years old. There's one other thing. When you're making a wing bowl like this, and I'm going to flip that, I'm going to show you how I set it up, and then I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to take the middle out of it. It's another 2 tenon situation. I call them half logs. You start, let me not trip on your cord, Phil. You start with the half of the log like this. The headstock is over here. The tailstock is over here. You turn a tenon here. Set it up, 1/4 inch, phase it off. Then you put it in the chuck, and you put an interior or an expansive chuck in here to grab the other side. Then you put it, if you're doing it that way, then you can work on the edge. If you go back around once more, you can then take the cuts that you want to take. This is so dry that you don't have to worry about what's happening to either end. And if you've ever tried to turn one of these, it can get really exciting if you're using green wood, because what inevitably happens is, first of all, the centrifugal force is going to cause it to flex as it gets thinner, and it's also going to start to dry, which means this end won't meet this end coming around. And at 750 RPM or thereabouts, that can lead to quite a surprise. Lisa? That's auctioned. I'm not going to take it home, but I'm going to show you how I do this. It is all set up now. I have done this and it's been sanded to 400. Okay. By the way, take an afternoon and make a handle for yourself that you can get your hand around. That's an old piece of scrap coco bolo I had, and I've got all of my chuck wrenches set up for that. I made 2 of these out of ash, and I did a Betty Scarpino on them. I dyed them and then white limed the soft grain with white liming wax. And I didn't bring them tonight because I had all this other stuff, but we are doing our last 4 days of the year as demonstrators at the Folk Arts Center starting day after tomorrow, and I will be turning from 10 to 6. And in a good year, we would do $1,000 to $1,500 a day. And when we're there demonstrating, we don't get to keep it all, but we do only have a 25% commission instead of 50. So, that worked out pretty good. The only problem is $9,300 of my inventory went down the French Broad River, and the 2 galleries that were carrying that work were completely flooded out, and they lost Now, the trick here is stay the hell out of the way, okay? Now, what I have found that using the toe of the chisel, or the very point of the chisel, into the wood and then turning it after I've gotten into the bark doesn't cause the bark to want to blast off of it. And right now, once again, we're just hogging wood. I got to tell you all, I have stood in so many booths and sold so much stuff to folks that I really never want to stand in another one. So the demonstrations we do at the Folk Arts Center are the only time that you see me out there turning. And when I do, I really like playing with the kids, engaging with the audience. On the weekends, I'd have 20 people in front of me, and I'd be like that guy that sells knives inside of Sam's or something, you know? And one of the things I typically do is I'll make a bowl. I didn't want to do that. I will make a bowl, and I'll turn around and I'll look at the little kid that's standing in front of me, and I'll say, is your dad helpful or is he hopeless? Do a little Art Link letter on him, right? Most of you all don't even remember Art Link letter. And the things kids say, right? Well, you'd be surprised at the answers you get. Sometimes the kid's standing there, the kid's behind him, and he goes, you know? And sometimes dad says, I'm hopeless. What I do is tell him to go down to Lowe's, get a package of mixed sandpaper, and that boy or girl and that father, I said, now you finish that. I'm giving it to you now. It's a nice bowl. And you send me a picture. Get the pictures. And I'll tell you what, those kids have learned something. I don't know how long it'll take for that seed to germinate, but it took a long time for it to germinate for me, because when I left my house at 18, I swore I'd never pick up a tool in my life. Well, you can see what happened. What really got me started my dad brought a shopsmith into the rental home that I grew up in it from 2 to 6 in Ohio. Fancied himself a woodworker. Shopsmith is a decent piece of equipment for a hobbyist. Its highest and best use is probably as a lathe. But, damn, I don't like this. I'm going to have to beat the hell out of this thing to get it to stay in one place. You know, you're supposed to turn the lathe off when you do that. I have a scar. There we go. Now, let's see what we got. I'm going to take another half an inch off of this one, probably. Oh yeah, I like that fine. So one day, I think I may have told this story before, but I don't think it'll get me kicked out of here, so I'll tell it again. I was saying to people, I got 10, 15 people around me watching, protective shield and all that. And I said, does anybody want to try and characterize what I am currently doing? Well, everybody sits there typically with a blank face, or else they wouldn't have been sitting there watching. And I said, what I'm really doing is hogging wood. I'm just taking every piece of wood that's inside of this by a reductive process, and I'm going to put it on the floor. I said, and I didn't qualify my crowd. I said, if you went to fine art school, they would tell you that you're removing material from the workpiece, not hogging wood. See, when you go to fine art school, they teach a whole nother vocabulary. And if you happen to find a hole or a void in what you're doing, which we are commonly provided from time to time, you would say, that's a hole or a void, and you'd figure out what you were going to do with it. The fine arts people say that's negative space. Now, then I follow up very quickly and say, do you know what the difference between a hole and negative space is? And everybody sits there blankly. I said, well, it's $250,000 of college tuition you'll never get back because, somebody with a fine arts degree is going to end up being a barrister at Starbucks. Well, I told that joke. Everybody laughed like hell because it's the truth. And some people just can't stand it. But I sat there, and there's this lady in the back of the crowd, and she's waving her hands. And, she's 65 if she's a day, And she said, sir, I'll have you know there are lots of jobs available for people with fine arts degrees. Now, this is where I get in trouble. Because I said, well, ma'am, I don't doubt that there may have been when you graduated, but I suspect that wasn't last semester. She went back and reported the manager of the store that I was out there making political commentary. Golly, I can't win for losing. But it's been a lot of fun. What I would typically do with this piece, now there's some real pretty curl in this, and there's real pretty curl in that if somebody wants to pay some money for it. I don't want to take it home, so somebody say something. Here, you can pass that around. It's just a sand out. Yeah. If I have to use a number 60 chisel, I will. I've got an air-driven Dynabrade, and it'll take the skin off you. It'll cut your britches. Not these. These are my good ones. Turn it over, feel it. Anybody? You don't have to worry about it flexing or bending. This thing is as stiff. I can't say it. Anyway, $5? 10? 15? 15? Gone once? 15? He's not going to bid again. Say 20. 20. I got 20 over here. 20, 25. Look, you're going to get 2 bowls out of this that are going to sell for $200 bucks a piece. Seriously. 25. 25. We have a bid in the back of 25. Teeth, feathers, and hide. Here it is, sir. Sold to you. $25. The gentleman right there. Okay. Questions? Anybody got questions? How do you find my shop? You pick up the phone. Yes, sir. John? Well, I have a Dynabreed sander that is that big. And I will start out not turning it on the lathe. I will simply start sweeping it back and forth. Yes. And I sanded, I sanded this one out in about an hour from 80 to 400 on both sides. Now, I wasn't up here talking, and I was working, and I had some music in my ear and so forth. But look at the curl. Did you guys see the curl in this wood? Bradford pear. Gracious sakes. I don't think we'll be coming back home from Asheville with that piece. Probably going to sell that for $250, and I'll bet you it'll go away. I'll probably buff it a little bit. Okay, folks, that's the show. Yes, sir. I have that. Where's the other piece? Yeah. Let me not kick that bottle over. Tom, I leave this nice and thick. Now you notice that that's flat there, but I have got plenty of room to ride this up and make a smaller. You'll notice this tenon is a lot smaller than that. All I'm doing is running that up like that, dishing it out, making it concave so it'll stand flat. I turn it between centers, and I have a rubber piece that fits on my headstock that backs up, and I jam chuck it. And I jam chuck it with the point like this, and I leave that on there, that registration, until I'm done sanding. Then I nick that off with a chisel and sand that out, and we're done. Yep.
Bill, thank you so much. That was extremely informative and entertaining.
Well, I hope you all.
Very good.
I hope you all enjoyed it. I will tell you that, you find something simple that you stumble onto, and you say, that piece right there, I would enter this piece into any regional art show that we have, and I'll bet you it'll get at least an honorable mention. There are a couple of reasons for that. Not that it's particularly beautiful. If you go to an art show, the people who are there think they're artists because they have a brush in their hand. They're artists. They're two-dimensional artists. Can you imagine the gasp that went up in 2019 when over in Jonesboro, when the guy turned around and said, best of show is Cranberry Ocean Spray by Bill and Tina Collison. And I'm shooting the bull over in the back with a couple of people, and they said, Bill, I think you just won the prize. You will get an honorable mention because you have three-dimensional work, and generally there aren't that many pieces that are entered to be judged. But it's interesting when you're in a mixed group. What was really the psychic income was the gasp of the women that were clutching their beads because they were artists, they were painters, and they thought I changed your oil, I'm not an artist. I'm a mechanic. This is one of the most difficult genres of art because it is a reductive process. Sculpting is very similar. You're taking things away. You're not adding things to them like potters do, like painters do. If you take a little too much, you now have a design opportunity you're presented with to make a bowl this big instead of this big. So, normally we'll find that we get in and we get honorable mentions. An honorable mention is like kissing your sister. There's no money in it, but you get a little plaque. Gosh, we must have 20 of them at home. Anyway, thank you again. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
All right, now we've got most everything we've covered. If anybody has any other announcements that you finally remembered, but Doug Lohman is going to be doing our demonstration next month, and it will be a surprise unless you want to tell us. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So everybody come back next month and don't forget your ornaments, okay? Please. What?
I'll be talking about my experience with sheet weaving and chair hanging, both of which are rather dying arts.
Yeah. Okay. So we got, weaving and chair caning. So it's all aspects of woodwork and textile. It's just the creative arts, and I love it. And it's as he said, it's a dying thing. Not a lot of people are doing it anymore. So, anywho, yes.
If anybody's going to Klingspor in a couple of weeks, if anybody's going to Klingspor in a couple of weeks for the day and wants somebody to ride with them, let me know. That way I don't have to drive down myself.
I'm kidding.
Have we got a whisk broom or something in here?
Oh, and there's a bunch of magazines over here. Okay, the magazines are going in the garbage if nobody wants them, so pick them up, take them. There's articles in them. And one more thing, over on the table where the cards are, if Dan had not been where he could have sent me a picture of the card,
I'm sorry.
I was caught without any. So
Oh,
thank you
glad
for
you
that.
like it.
But make sure when you're out and about, you've got some of those invitation cards so we can build interest in the club. And that's it. See you next month.